Well, did you mean to do that? A little earth, wind, fire as I look at Fox News, and the blazes are really bad out in California. 3 major wildfires are burning in Los Angeles right now. You've got Malibu I'm looking at on TV. It is absolutely horrific what is happening out west. And it is just one example of next-level incompetency from city, county, state officials all across the board. I mean, it's really sad to see what is going on out there right now, and you're just hoping that these winds die down to some degree so these firefighters in the Los Angeles area can get some of these things under control. You go on social media right now, and you will see dozens of examples of people in their homes or fleeing their homes at the last minute with fire surrounding their homes. Dogs in the house. I mean, it is horrible what is happening out there right now. Good morning, 6:06 on another busy Wednesday morning on KCMO Talk Radio. So journalists found their balls again, apparently. Yeah, now that Trump's getting back to go into the White House, they have suddenly found the ability to ask the President of the United States questions that they should be asking. Like, suddenly it's like, oh, yeah, we can actually ask questions of a president, which you really couldn't do much with Joe Biden because the guy was never really available to ask him any questions. But suddenly they found their backbone. They found the ability to say, sir, you said this. Can you explain this? With Joe Biden, it was kid gloves all day, every day. But now that a Republican, especially Donald Trump, is back in the mix, they have found the ability to try to do gotcha journalism once again. I want to start off, Donald Trump did this press conference yesterday in Mar-a-Lago, and it was one of the classic Trump, marathon press conferences where he makes comments and then takes a bunch of questions from the media. He's getting warmed up for January 20th. I mean, the guy's not in the White House yet, but he feels like the president, doesn't he?
Exactly, right?
It's like he's not technically in charge of anything yet, but for the last 6 weeks, it's felt like he's running the country anyway.
Chiefs fans might recall a time, I think Gunther was the coach. We're like, hey, how come Dick Vermeil's hanging around? Something like that.
It does feel like that. So with that being the case, it felt like Donald Trump was already the president yesterday as he's doing this press conference. But here's one clip that stood out to me when you had a member of ABC News ask him about, well, sir, you said you're going to bring prices down. How are you going to bring prices down on day one? Let's roll that clip.
On the campaign trail, you vowed to bring down the prices at grocery stores very fast.
Yeah, we won't do it fast.
But then you recently told Time Magazine that bringing down prices would be very hard. So what can the American people expect when you get into office?
It's always hard to bring down prices when somebody else has screwed something up like they did. But we'll bring them down. We'll get them down. Energy is going to bring down prices. We're going to have a lot of energy. And energy is what brought it up. Energy and their bad spending is what brought it up. And energy is going to bring it down. We're going to have prices down. I think you're going to see some pretty drastic price reductions. As an example, food, bacon, ham, apples, everything has gone through the roof.
It's
hamburgers. One of the reasons I won. So as you know, I said it, inflation was one of the reasons I won. But I think the biggest reason I won was the fact that they are allowing prisoners to come into our country. They released their prisoners, their murderers. Thousands of murderers are now walking around the streets of our cities and farmland all over. Murders, people that have killed. Many, 32% have killed more than one person. They released them from their jails, their prisons, and their mental institutions and insane asylums into our country. I believe that's the reason we got such a large vote.
We have pizzas, we have 300 hamburgers, many French fries.
That's right, many French fries. Get the price of French fries down. Get them down ASAP. Let's make it happen here. So here's what's magically going to happen when Donald Trump takes office. I guarantee you there will be a report coming up a week after he takes office about how the price of groceries have not come down yet. You know it's coming, and I know it's coming. The same people who for 4 years gaslit you into saying, well, these price increases are transitory. Well, you really shouldn't worry about the price of eggs. What's the big deal? oh, Joe's doing his best. Just hang with him for a little bit. He's helping out where he can. Suddenly are now going to be hawks when it comes to your egg prices, when it comes to your meat prices, when it comes to the milk, whatever it might be coming out of the grocery store. They are going to be monitoring it by the day. Do I think Trump shows up and egg prices come down the next day? No. Do I think that the two major things he just alluded to there, energy prices and bad spending by the federal government and spending on money that we don't have, can help over time reduce or at the very least increase the speed at which cost is going up? Absolutely. It is hard to get prices down without some type of major recession. But at this point, what you really want to see is just stability in prices. You don't want to see 3% inflation become the new normal when for decades the goal was 2%. You might say, what's the big deal? That's just a 1% increase. It's actually a 50% increase. If you go from an annual inflation rate from 2 to 3%, your inflation has gone up 50%, 5-0. That is not what we want to be the new normal, because the average American is not going to be able to keep up if things go up 3% every year and they compound on top of each other year after year after year.
Marketing opportunity for a grocery chain. On your circular that you're going to put out on the week of inauguration on the 20th, just drop the price of eggs.
Yeah.
Just for fun, right?
Yes.
If just for sale.
Oh, that would be great.
Yeah.
That would be funnier if they put up like a Trump special or something like that.
Yeah, eggs and bacon on sale.
Yeah.
And apples.
Yeah, that was, yes. Right. He did pick some interesting food choices there. Yeah. Oh, that was good.
Run through the A, B, C,
yeah.
apple, bacon.
Oh, brother. That would be outstanding. The inauguration price of eggs this week. Oh.
We just need to know about McDonald's. Though.
Yeah,
I'm not worth your McDonald's money.
That's right. Come on.
Oh, they're
Come
bringing
on.
back the dollar menu.
Yes, bring it back, baby. Get the Big Mac down. Let's go. We're getting back to normal here in this country. Let her rip. So these journalists are now very concerned about the price of your groceries. They weren't for 4 years. They told you it wasn't a big deal. They told you it was kind of barely happening, but now they really care. It's interesting how that works.
Wait, we just need to get better jobs.
I know. That is what they said. Right. It's ridiculous. It's insulting, the angle that they took. And then you had all the drama that took place yesterday, if you missed it, where Donald Trump talked about trying to buy Greenland and the Panama Canal. No, I'm serious. And I think he's serious too. Now, there's a part of me that doesn't like it. There's another part of me that understands it. But this sent so many off the deep end. I couldn't believe it. 913-408-7957. And I'll tell you what, when it comes to keeping the cards close to the vest on anything foreign policy, that's what should be done here. We'll dive into it coming up on 95.7 FM KCMO, and we are streaming on the KCMO Talk Radio app. So part of this wild press conference, and wild might be too strong of a word, but it certainly was newsworthy from incoming President Donald Trump, was this talk about the Panama Canal and Greenland. Two things I didn't think 2 months ago we'd be spending a lot of time talking about, but here we are. It's why you can't go ahead trying to predict the news cycle. You just can't do it. And the reason these two things are coming up, number one is national security. There is a thought that having Greenland under American control, let's say a la Puerto Rico, would put America in a very good spot or a better spot when it comes to the Russians and the Chinese. And the Panama Canal has come up. Similar reasons, national security. It is believed and it is known that the Chinese do control major ports there along the Panama Canal. We know what they are doing along our southern border when it comes to drugs, notably fentanyl, through Mexico. When it comes to human trafficking, who knows what type of terrorist activity they are trying to get into this country. The Chinese, that government, the CCP, they're the bad guys. That's indisputable. So from a foreign policy perspective, these two things came up yesterday during Donald Trump's press conference in Mar-a-Lago. And here is what he said specifically about Greenland yesterday. Let's roll that clip.
Well, we need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time, long before I even ran. I mean, people have been talking about it for a long time. You have approximately 45,000 people there. People really don't even know if Denmark has any legal right to it. But if they do, they should give it up because we need it for national security. That's for the free world. I'm talking about protecting the free world. You look at, you don't even need binoculars. You look outside, you have China ships all over the place. You have Russian ships all over the place. We're not letting that happen. We're not letting it happen. And if Denmark wants to get to a conclusion, but nobody knows if they even have any right, title, or interest. The people are going to probably vote for independence or to come into the United States. But if they did do that, then I would tariff Denmark at a very high level.
So that was Trump yesterday at Mar-a-Lago. Now, Greenland has a population of about 560,000. Not very, enormous piece of property. But most of it is obviously not livable in the Arctic Circle. So the economy is largely dependent on subsidies from Copenhagen, and it does remain part of the Kingdom of Denmark. And Trump believes that there are national security interests to bringing them under the United States in some way, shape, or form. And that's why this has become part of the conversation, because there is this. I know that when it comes to national security and foreign policy, it's never all that sexy to talk about until, God forbid, something awful ends up happening. But there's undoubtedly things that have been percolating behind the scenes during the weakness of Joe Biden's 40 years in office that could come back to bite America and, frankly, kill Americans at some point. I don't know when. I don't know how. God willing, it will never happen. But there's no doubt the world is a more dangerous place today than it was 4 years ago, and America is less safe than it was 4 years ago. And while Trump's got all these economic issues he's got to figure out how to turn around, the border obviously is top of the list as well. There are things that the worst actors on the planet, I believe, and I think most people believe, have taken advantage of thanks to the weakness of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And now he's basically got to figure out how to best fortify the United States and thinking outside the box. So this conversation yesterday drove the media nuts. They were just freaking out about, Trump's. It's the old adage of you take Donald Trump seriously, you don't always take him literally. Trump's not even in office yet, and they are back to square one on their hysterics and the nonsense that they always bring to the table. Dana bashed CNN yesterday. Here is what she had to say coming out of that press conference.
Some new information about what he intends to do, or at the very least is not ruling out when he takes office, including not ruling out a military invasion to conquer Greenland, the Panama Canal, and perhaps the annexation of the country of Canada.
You can hear it in her voice, but Dana Bash's face on CNN really tells the story, where she looks like she just saw a ghost. Her face is white as could be. She looks horrified at the report that she is reading on the air. It's actually an acting job, is what Dana Bash is doing. Anybody who is out there who is acting like, oh my gosh, we are going to go to war again, and we're going to start trying to take over countries, and we're starting with Greenland, and then we're going to the Panama Canal, and then we're going to Canada. Relax. Relax. Okay? Do I think these are priority number one? I don't. I don't think these are day one things. I think that Trump likes to talk about a lot of things. He likes to talk about a lot of ideas. And then eventually some will be implemented and some won't be, and they'll just fall by the wayside. And you will never hear from them again. I think Trump actually thinks when he's talking. And by that, I mean he's kind of feeling out what he wants to do as he's talking through something. You might know people like that at work. I've dealt with people like that are higher ups in different companies, where when they're talking to you, what they're really doing is thinking through their own ideas. And your job is to simply listen. Because they want to figure out what they want to do by talking to you. And then eventually what you'll do is you'll throw in a one-liner here and there. You will, give them something to chew on once in a while. But they're really not looking for your opinion. What they're looking to do is figure out what their opinion is. I've dealt with people like that in my professional life mostly. And once you understand what they're doing, and once you understand how they think, because everybody thinks differently, you realize what's going on. These people aren't talking to you. They don't call me up to actually get an opinion on something. They call me up to bounce their opinions off of me, but then think through their own opinions and come to their own conclusion. And if they're bosses and companies, you kind of let them do it. That's part of what I believe Trump is doing here. He's not in office yet. He's got a couple of weeks to go. He's got a lot of big ideas, and he's trying to figure out the best way forward. Do I think that he's going to turn his back on the basics, things like the economy and the border here in the United States? No, I don't. Do I think that Greenland is priority number one? Absolutely not. I do find it a bit hypocritical that there are people on the isolationist right who spent the last 6 to 12 months insisting to us that there is no rhyme or reason for why we do anything overseas. We got to get out of the overseas game and just go full-blown isolation here in the U.S. And now they love the Panama Canal and they love Greenland. I love Greenland. It's like, what's going on here, guys? You didn't want us involved in anything overseas. And now it's all about Greenland. We got guys, bloggers going to Greenland for, clicks and photo ops, and Panama Canal is now a big deal. Which one is it? You can't have it both ways. But I'm not worried about any of this. If nothing else, this signals to me the United States is no longer going to be a shrinking violet, and it's about damn time. It's 4 years overdue. The news broke yesterday late in the show when we were on the air, and the fallout from it has just been, so fantastic. I am just drinking the tears of the people who are upset that Mark Zuckerberg is now no longer going to have full-time left-wing fact checkers running Facebook and Instagram. And it is a joy to see. If you missed it, Mark Zuckerberg talked about removing fact checkers from his platforms. Here's what he said in a 5-minute video that the Meta CEO dropped yesterday.
We're going to get back to our roots and focus on reducing mistakes, simplifying our policies, and restoring free expression on our platforms. More specifically, we're going to get rid of fact checkers and replace them with community notes similar to X, starting in the U.S.
That's great. Basically, he is following the fearless leader, Elon Musk. That's what he is doing. And I'm glad he's doing it. Do I believe that Mark Zuckerberg would have started doing this had Kamala Harris beaten Donald Trump? Absolutely not. I am not naive enough to believe that's the case. Do I believe there is a business play here for Mark Zuckerberg as well, knowing that he's got a bullseye on his back? Not literally, obviously. You got to say that these days, but figuratively speaking, from Republican politicians who still think back to 2020 and the Zucker bucks and the amount of money that he dumped into that election on behalf of Joe Biden, yes. But I also believe that Mark Zuckerberg is a different guy. I believe that Mark Zuckerberg is a bit of a changed man. I actually think that he has seen the error in his ways. And that's admirable for a guy at that level with that kind of power and money to basically put together a video saying, I screwed up. Got that wrong. That's what he's doing here. Most people with that kind of money and or power don't say it. Even if they admit it privately, they never admit it publicly. And they really never put out 5-minute videos on social media explaining why they screwed up and how they screwed up and how they're going to fix things. That is very rare in today's climate. So I give Mark Zuckerberg props for that. But the media reaction is exactly how you know that this is the right move for Facebook. I want to read some of these to you. Let's start with Brian Stelter. Is he with CNN still or not? He was back and forth. He got fired. They brought him back. He's the little bald guy, the human chode over there at CNN. He put up on X yesterday when this news broke, Mark Zuckerberg just announced sweeping changes to the social internet, all in line with the desires of President Trump and Trump voters. Out with the fact checkers that conservatives deride. In with more permissive rules for posting conservative opinions. That's a bunch of 1984 crap from Brian Stelter. Do you think he even understands how ridiculous he sounds? Probably not. Bakari Sellers, he is also a CNN guy. He put up yesterday, in response to this video, they want you dumber. They want facts to be subjective. They don't want you educated. CNN contributor Bakari Sellers reacting to this news. Headline from the New York Times. I kid you not, this is a real headline from the New York Times. Meta says fact checkers were the problem. Fact checkers rule that to be false. You can't make it up. When some of the loudest voices at CNN and the New York Times are upset that Facebook is getting rid of its fact checkers, then you know the right thing is happening here. We're on the same page with that, aren't we? If all the worst people are suddenly like, Facebook, big mistake, they've got to bring back their fact checkers, nothing more needs to be said. We were hours after the Zuckerberg announcement, and it became very clear that this was the right move because the worst of the worst were upset by the move. Because now they didn't have Facebook to basically do their bidding for them. They didn't have Facebook, and this is why they've hated Elon Musk, because Elon Musk didn't play that censorship game. And now they've got to go after Mark Zuckerberg because, God forbid, social media platforms go back to being the town square. They can't have that, John.
Well, exactly. They'd have to do their job. Journalism is an art of collecting facts on both sides and presenting those facts, not just your opinion.
Yeah.
So they can no longer just do opinion pieces. We don't need fact checkers if there are real journalists in the world.
Yeah, and they were using these big tech platforms to suppress those who disagreed with their opinions, which they presented as fact. Right? I mean, that's why they're so upset. They had the most powerful tech moguls in the palm of their hands. They had Jack, the former Twitter CEO. They had Zuckerberg. They had them all. And now Elon Musk buys Twitter. It's now X. It's a free speech platform. Zuckerberg does a 180 and says, we went too far on this stuff with fact checking. We're out of the fact checking business. And the people who had these individuals and thought they had these media platforms by the short hairs are upset about it. But here's the other part of it that they don't realize. These platforms now are more powerful than they are. And that's true for all of us. It's why we've got to be on all the social media platforms, right? Like, yes, we do this show every day, and that's the basis of what we do. This is the backbone of what we do here on 95.7 FM KCMO. But it's why a lot of our content we end up putting up on social media, whether it's on X, whether it's on Facebook. We'll link back to the podcast. You can find it on Apple, on Spotify. You have got to be in all these different places. It's not enough to just do a radio show. It's not enough to just be on television. And these TV people know that. That's why they're very active on the platforms. And that's why they're very upset that these platforms are no longer going to do their bidding. But Zuckerberg did make it clear in this other clip that we've got here that they're still going to go after people who are breaking the law, right? But like dealing drugs or, God forbid, trafficking human beings is a different model and a different thing to keep an eye out for than being like, I don't know if this fact about Donald Trump is 100% correct. Here's what he said yesterday.
How we enforce our policies to reduce the mistakes that account for the vast majority of censorship on our platforms. We used to have filters that scanned for any policy violation. Now, we're going to focus those filters on tackling illegal and high-severity violations. And for lower-severity violations, we're going to rely on someone reporting an issue before we take action.
There you go.
The problem is that the filters make mistakes, and they take down a lot of content that they shouldn't. So by dialing them back, we're going to dramatically reduce the amount of censorship on our platforms.
That was Mark Zuckerberg, part of this 5-minute video he put out yesterday. On the text line, Pete, he's playing you. Don't believe he's changed. He doesn't want Trump to come after him. See, I've heard that a lot the last 24 hours. Oh, he's playing you guys. He just doesn't want to lose his status, and he doesn't want to potentially lose some of the tax breaks that he gets. He doesn't want Trump and Republicans coming after him. First off, I don't believe that. Zuckerberg has done a lot of interviews in the last few months that suggests he's a changed guy. He has gone from highly political to suddenly coming off as very nonpartisan or apolitical. I'm not saying he's some diehard conservative, but he does seem like he's a changed guy. And that's allowed to happen. Do I think there's a business element to this? Do I think he doesn't want Republicans coming after him? Sure. I'm not naive. I don't think it's the sole driver, though. And the people that are pushing that are basically suggesting that Mark Zuckerberg is only doing this because he's afraid of Republicans coming after him and Trump going after him. And it feeds into that dictator storyline that they have kind of made up in their heads about what Donald Trump is going to be when he takes office in a couple of weeks. That's it. 3 major wildfires are burning in L.A. Live look at Malibu. It is engulfed in flames. They are just starting to wake up to that, obviously, on the West Coast, where it's 5:04 in the morning, and it is, we're talking 2,900 acres of wildfire, wind gusts overnight up to 100 miles an hour. It's been really bad. And I don't want to get ahead of the story, but you're seeing a lot of this on social media where a lot of the feedback you're seeing from people on the ground is a failure of local leadership, that's city, county, state leadership in California. And to bring it back here to Kansas City, we have seen some of that in the wake of the storm on Sunday. There are still people who can't get out of their neighborhoods around the Kansas City area. And I know a lot of the ire goes towards Kansas City, Missouri, but I will say this much about Kansas City, Missouri. They have been very proactive, and they have been very transparent, and they have done a ton with the media to try to get their message out there. We've had Kansas City City Manager Brian Platt on this show 3 times in the last couple of days. And then yesterday, we got a call from one listener in particular. Name was Mona in Kansas City up in the Northland. She was or is 70 years old. And she called, and she was part of Tirade Tuesday. And she said that the front of her driveway was piled up with several feet of snow at the end of a cul-de-sac that the city just dumped there. So after her tirade, I said, we're going to put you on hold, talk to Mark, I'll get your information, and we'll see if we can help you. So after the show, I reached out to the city manager, Brian Platt, directly, and we knew he was up in the Northland because when he joined the show yesterday, he said he was up north helping out some of the clearing crews. He went over there personally, to his credit, and he cleared all the snow out of this lady's driveway that the city had accidentally piled up right in front of her driveway. Say what you want about Kansas City, but that is pretty good service, and we appreciate him doing that and helping out a listener. So we're grateful that he did that. He spent the time doing it, and I'm glad it got taken care of. But you look around, and I put this on the KCMO Talk Radio Facebook page yesterday. I just said, which local cities are still struggling with snow removal? And Overland Park is just getting crushed here. There are dozens of you commenting that Overland Park has just gotten smoked, especially on the south side. Now, we're up here in Corporate Woods, and obviously you knew that they were going to kind of take care of the so-called business districts. that they know need to operate. But I've got photos here of eastbound 151st Street at Metcalf looking like a mess. We've got people we work with that are down, 170th Street, give or take. They can't even see their road still. No one's been by with a plow. I'm looking at this here, another picture from South OP. Now, what's interesting is some people are claiming that the Overland Park map shows their street as being plowed, but they've got photos of their own street having not been plowed, John. It's horrible.
May have made a pass, and who would know? I went out and shoveled my driveway, about half of it, not my whole driveway, but started to clear the car off. It was already piling up. Mine sets outside, and it piled up again before you'd even notice. The one thing I wanted to say that while this is true on the side street, look out this window, and I was telling Mark, coming in from Missouri, it's kind of rough, so I don't know if it's Kansas City, Missouri, taken care of up to the state line on the interstate. As soon as you hit Kansas, which is Leawood, it is dry as a bone.
MoDOT. That's MoDOT,
MoDOT
baby.
up to state line?
Yep.
Oh, then the KDOT from state line
Yes,
on?
yes.
Look at the traffic out there. You can go 60 this morning in Kansas. I could going west.
Yes.
But I don't know if that's where all the focus went. There's certainly a clear area out there, but to your point, they're not getting around, and there's so much snow. I know they came around twice on my street, and I live on a snow route, and it's still,
It's not good.
No.
It's not good.
And then the piling up at the driveway. I had my driveway clear, and I busted through once.
I know.
I had to redo that, but that's just part of the deal.
I'm looking here at some of your other Facebook comments. This is also another one against Overland Park. Jeff writes on Facebook, almost all of Overland Park, you have one lane heading southbound on major roads like Antioch clear. Northbound lane will be snow-packed and ice-packed. The residential streets are even worse all over Overland Park. So I'm going to text the mayor this morning, Mayor Skoog, try to get him on and figure out what the heck's going on because while I know there have been complaints about Kansas City, Missouri, and we know that as the biggest city, they will get the most complaints, they at least have been proactive. They've been out there. They've been trying to answer the questions of the city and help people out as much as they can, knowing there is still work to do. These other cities are kind of hiding, it seems like. You're not getting a lot of answers. There are a lot of complaints coming from residents. And we sit here now on Wednesday morning. We're 3 days out. And you should expect your road to be in decent shape. It's not unreasonable to be sitting here 3 days afterwards and saying, you know what? I'm all about grace. Yesterday, we talked about it a lot on the show. I said, we've got to give grace. People are working hard. But if there's a lack of transparency, there's a lack of response. And 72 hours later, you're still wondering, where's a snowplow? Okay, now you're allowed, I believe, you're allowed to be like, okay, what's going on here? Let's get some answers. And let's check in with our friend up north who we helped out yesterday, Mona in Kansas City. Hey, Mona, good morning. Everything good up there?
Hi, Pete. I am so grateful. You guys were so prompt. You and Brian Platt came right out. I guess he was in the Northland, I heard, but he took care of it, cleared the whole cul-de-sac, and it was wonderful. I really appreciate, your promptness, both of you, because I couldn't get out, and I had called 311. It was closed. Then I called the 513 number, and I got a lady. She said they hadn't opened the code, and I couldn't get through. And then I called you, and you took care of it, and I greatly appreciated it. It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Well, we're happy to help, Mona, but all I did was pass on your information to him, and ultimately they were the ones who had to take care of it. So I'm glad that they did, because I didn't know if they'd be like, we're slammed. We don't have time for it. But he said, you know what? I'm going to go over there right now and take care of it myself, and I'm glad that he helped you out there.
That was awesome. Thank you so much, Pete.
You bet, Mona. Glad we could help out. I appreciate you. Thanks so much for listening. If we can play a small role in that, that's great. I put up, Brian Platt sent me a photo yesterday of him clearing out not of him, but of just the cleared out cul-de-sac up there in the Northland. And I put it up on social media, and I got this response from Kevin. He goes, Pete, that's awesome. Can you tell Brian Platt that the city did the same thing to me, and now I'm having a hard time remodeling my upstairs bathroom? I could really use some help here. Oh, man. Also, Pete, I think he's the next mayor. Well, no. Brian Platt's not going to be the next mayor. Listen, being a city manager is a lot better than being the mayor. You make more money. You're appointed. You don't have to run a campaign. You don't have to do all the politicking, and you're not hamstrung by a couple of term limits or by term limits in general. So you can, if you are a competent city manager, which is an apolitical job, you got to keep the streets clean during snowstorms. You got to pick up the trash. You're not really in charge of the police department, right? That's its own entity here in Kansas City. If you just do the basics fairly well, you can make good money and have a long career. So there is no reason for a guy who's a city manager to go run for mayor. I mean, unless you really want to get into politics, which I'm not sure why you would want to do that. But that's not going to happen. But I'm glad that the feedback has been largely positive.
I remember he was up for another job. I don't know if it was Houston or somewhere.
I think
like
it was
that.
Austin.
Austin, okay, yeah. And then he got a re-up deal here recently.
Yeah, he kind of, leveraged his interview down in Austin, Texas to probably get a little bump here in Kansas City. Not a bad gig. It's called capitalism, right? If you're wanted somewhere and you can prove it and you got a deal on the table, it's happening in college football every day. Although some guys I see overplaying their hands. There was a lineman from Kansas State who was like, I got a big SEC offer. K-State's like, well, we can't match that walk. He ends up in Washington. The SEC offer never existed. So you got to be careful with some of that stuff. So it's now 17 new head coaches in the AFC West who will have been hired since the Chiefs hired Andy Reid over a decade ago. Can you believe that? That's a wild number. 17 different head coaches will have been hired in the AFC West between the Chargers, the Broncos, and the Raiders since Andy Reid got the job here in KC, John.
That's almost 6 apiece.
Yeah, no, it's like 7 for the Raiders, 6 for the Broncos, like 5 for the Chargers, I think it is.
That's all. Yeah, wow.
It's crazy. And this came after the Raiders fired head coach Antonio Pierce after one season yesterday. So now it's that stupid time of year in the NFL where the super left sports media, and they are further out there than the news media is, believe it or not, as someone who has spent time in both worlds, starts crying and screaming about how many coaches in the NFL are black. Instead of saying, do we have the best people for the job in the jobs, they start screaming about skin color because that's all. And it's funny how it's so many white people who are just, hating their own skin color and dripping with white guilt who end up pursuing this narrative. So you've got this job for the Raiders now open up. You've got the New England Patriots job open up. They fired Gerard Mayo after one season as well. And it's believed that in Patriots land, they want to hire Mike Vrabel. Now, Mike Vrabel is a former Patriot who played under Bill Belichick. And he's been on the sidelines now for, I guess it's only been, one off season? Since he was the head coach of the Tennessee Titans for about 5 years. That was during the run when they got to the AFC Championship game and played the Chiefs here in Arrowhead. That would have been the 2019 season. That first Super Bowl as part of this big run. So he's been on the sidelines looking for a new head coaching gig. I think he's spending the year as like a consultant with the Cleveland Browns. And it's believed that Robert Kraft, the head coach, wants to hire Mike Vrabel. Former Patriot, does have a good track record, believed to be kind of that Belichick model. So it makes sense. That's cool. Whatever he wants to do is his prerogative, right? But now what you're seeing is a push from people who are like, wait, what about the Rooney Rule? Now, the Rooney Rule is a rule that's been in place for many years now in the NFL that requires you to interview a certain number of coaches of color. And when it was created, the hearts of the people involved were in the right place. It's been 20 years now, the Rooney Rule, and it encourages basically people of different backgrounds to get opportunities to interview for head coaching gigs. The goal was to increase the number of minority head coaches in the NFL and general managers and other executive positions. But here's the problem. You get a situation like this where Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, knows exactly what he wants to do. He knows who he wants his next head coach to be. But he's got to interview a couple of people because of their skin color. So what do? If you know who you want your head coach to be and that person happens to be white, but you have to interview at least one person who isn't white, well, that's a tough spot for everybody. It's an insult to the people who are interviewing for a job they know they're not going to get, and it's an insult to the entire Rooney Rule. So people are taking aim at the Rooney Rule or taking aim at the Patriots here, and then what they really should be doing is taking aim at the Rooney Rule in general. Because what the Patriots did yesterday is they interviewed Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton, and they bragged about it on social media, two guys who happen to be black. And the pushback on social media was, oh, you just hired them or you just interviewed them because you had to, because they're black guys. Well, we're required to if you're the Patriots. And yes, it's insulting the Pep Hamilton and Byron Leftwich that they have to go there and do these interviews when most people know there's very little chance they're getting the job. What else are you supposed to do? You have to abide by the Rooney Rule, John. You have no choice.
That's the thing with the left, the symbolism over substance here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because now it drags people into the process who maybe aren't qualified or aren't quite ready.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
If a guy's got a legitimate shot at it, you want to look at him, but you may know what you want to do. But, you know, you sit there and you say, oh, I'll listen to this guy, even if you've got your mind made up. But some guys are not even, you're just finding somebody. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo. Eric Bieniemy, come on over.
Yes. And that was the same thing with Bieniemy when he was getting some interviews. He was viewed as just a Rooney Rule guy. And it's ultimately not fair to these guys either. It's not fair to the Bieniemies. It's not fair to the Byron Leftwiches who are just showing up for these interviews because, well, I got to interview a black guy. It's like, that's not fair to these guys. That's where the Rooney Rule, like many left-wing ideas, have good intentions in theory on paper, but then when implemented, you see the flaws, right? You're like, wait, this is kind of actually insulting to these people who know they're not going to get the job, have to prepare for an interview. They don't want to look like idiots, but no, going into the interview. I mean, could you imagine going into an interview knowing you've got basically no shot at the job? But you have to put yourself in the right mindset because here's what happens. Let's say a guy like Byron Leftwich is up for a job. Well, you know what's going to happen. People around the league are going to be like whispering, he didn't interview well with the Patriots. He did not do a good job in that interview with the Patriots. Well, yeah, he went into it knowing that he had no chance of getting it. There's human nature here as well. I mean, everyone's still a human being. You're going to go into a job that you know you've got zero chance at getting. You're only getting the interview, arguably, because of your skin color, even no one's willing to say the quiet part out loud. How are you going to do in that interview? Not well, and I can't blame you for not doing well. So Jordan Schultz is a reporter with Fox, and he put up yesterday on X, the NFL's Rooney Rule has been around for years, but watching teams blatantly sidestep it never stops being frustrating. The Patriots checked the box by interviewing Byron Leftwich and Pep Hamilton, high-quality coaches, but clearly not the frontrunners for the job. Everyone knows it. Now, with that formality out of the way, they're free to move forward and hire Vrabel as soon as this Thursday. At least pretend it's more than a technicality. This isn't about compliance, it's about respect. To the candidates, to the process, to the league itself, it shouldn't be this way. What are they supposed to do? Are they supposed to wait a week and start teasing to the media, well, Leftwich did really well, he might be in the mix, and then pull the rug out from under him? And say, we're going to hire Mike Vrabel. He just eked it out over Byron Leftwich. That would be a lie. Everyone knows what the Patriots are going to do. 99% chance Mike Vrabel's their guy. They still have to go through these interviews. You tell me then, Jordan Schultz, or anybody who thinks the Rooney Rule is like this just incredible rule, what the best way to handle this is then. If you know who you want to hire, and it just so happens that person is white, what's the best way to do this then? Somebody think of an answer. The Patriots are forced to do this. Every team is forced to do this. You can't blame the team for doing what they have to legally do to then end up with the head coach that they ultimately want to have. And I shared this on X last night. I said if the Patriots' intention is to hire Mike Vrabel, then the Rooney Rule is an insult and a waste of time to the coaches who know they're simply there to reach a quota. And that's what this has become, sadly. I think it would be great if we just get the best head coaches out there, no matter who they are, white, black. And I do understand the history of the NFL where black coaches haven't gotten as many opportunities. But the way to do this is to inherently try to promote good people, bring them up through the ranks, and not force quotas onto teams that become nothing but, well, I got to check off the box.
Well, and in a year where one of the coaches being fired from the Raiders is black and only won 4 games. So, I mean, there's no cause and effect here to the whole skin color hire the guy thing.
Well, and same with the Patriots, Gerard Mayo.
Sure.
I mean, trust me.
Look, the teams didn't say, hey, we want a 3 or 4 win coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. They thought they hired a guy, thought he'd get it done.
And if the Raiders and the Patriots hire white guys, people are going to be screaming racism. I guarantee you. It's got nothing to do with that. But there are people who are going to take that approach to this deal because that's what they're always, everything they're looking for is based around racism in America. Whether it's NFL head coaching gigs or anything else. That's an angle that some people will take in the wake of some of the firings that took place on Black Monday, which is the Monday after the NFL regular season comes to an end.
But they're not going to talk about the Texans coach who's gone to back-to-back playoffs, right?
Well, exactly right.
Former player, too, like those other 2 guys.
D'Amico Ryans, who's doing a great job down in Houston. He's brought them back to AFC South titles the last 2 years. We'll see what they do in the playoffs. I think if they come to Kansas City in the second round, they're in some trouble. But you're right. I mean, and D'Amico Ryans is a great coach because he's a great coach, not because of his skin color.
There you go. Yeah.
There's a novel concept.
KCMO Talk Radio.
Some new information about what he intends to do, or at the very least is not ruling out when he takes office, including not ruling out a military invasion to conquer Greenland, the Panama Canal, and perhaps the annexation of the country of Canada.
We are in for so much more of that the next 4 years. Good morning. Happy Wednesday, hump day morning. Frigid temperatures across Kansas City. Be safe on the roads today. We are so glad you are here on KCMO. So that is a prime example of how the media will be reacting. It's like they didn't miss a beat from 4 years ago. They haven't learned their lesson of the last 4 years or the last 8 years. And they are going to continue to take Donald Trump literally and not seriously. When the answer to Donald Trump is to take him seriously, but not literally. And I know you can't see Dana Bash from CNN in that clip that we just played, but she looks scared to death. Donald Trump is going to invade Greenland, and then he's going to take over the Panama Canal, and then he's going to steal Canada from the Canadians, and then, who knows what's next? We're all going to die.
Wayne Gretzky will be the governor. I heard that yesterday.
Listen, Trump's got great political instincts. He doesn't pick good candidates for the most part. Sorry, Herschel Walker. Sorry, Dr. Oz. Just not. Listen, we're not all great at everything. He's not great at picking candidates. So I don't know if I want Wayne Gretzky to be the governor of Canada. But either way, I did see some of that, too, on social media. The reaction that you saw yesterday to this press conference that Donald Trump did at Mar-a-Lago was case in point on why Joe Biden, or Kamala Harris, I should say, ultimately lost. See, America's not going to take a back seat anymore. Donald Trump has these ideas. I don't know how many of them are going to happen. Do I think that we have Greenland in 4 years as a U.S. territory? I would lean no. I would say the odds
99%.
Yeah, the odds are probably not. I don't know if Mark can look it up on one of his sports books, but the odds are we're probably not going to have Greenland as a U.S. territory by the time Trump's done in the first term. But a lot of this also is just signaling to the world that our days of being wimpy, our days of America being last, our days of not directing the world on how this place is going to look are over. That's part of this. As much as anything else, that is the message that Donald Trump is sending to China, to Russia, to all of Europe, and to the Middle East. The big boys are back in charge, and we will be directing foreign policy all over the globe, whether you like it or not. And you better get in line. That's what's going on here, John.
Thursday night will not become hockey night there, in the U.S.
No, it will not be.
We're not adopting that.
No,
it's to your point. It's like, oh, these tariffs, they're killing us.
Yes.
They're not there yet.
Yes.
He just mentioned it.
I know. It's all the art of the deal.
Yep.
That's what this is.
People have no idea what that means.
No, it's amazing. They don't care, though, because this is all just picking up where they left off at the end of the first term. Despite the fact that he's got the mandate this time around with the popular vote and an electoral college landslide sweeping every single swing state.
Yeah, they don't understand the art of the deal. It's only in these Marxist contexts of a seat at the table.
I know.
No,
yes.
No.
That's exactly right, man. That's how it goes.
Looks like on Poly Markets,
yeah,
5.6 cents. Yes. So not a good chance.
So a 5% chance, is that what that means?
Yeah.
That we end up getting Greenland?
Yeah.
On
so
the
you're
Poly
saying
Markets?
there's a chance?
Exactly.
So if you think he's going to do it, get in now on the yes.
Yeah, get in on if you think it's going to happen, start placing your bets. Now, you got to bet that in the overseas offshore betting markets. You can't do that kind of stuff here in the U.S., so I'm not telling you to do it or not do it. But Mark's got the odds. Van Sickle, Parlay Man, got it all taken care of for us in there. Nice job by you. So that was in large part the media reaction to Donald Trump's press conference yesterday, where he did talk about things like, hey, Greenland could be a national security interest for the United States. He talked about how the Chinese are taking over the Panama Canal with multiple ports. That's not good for the United States. The Canada thing's a little goofy. I think in large part he's trolling Canada, and I'm totally fine with that. I think he's trying to get Canada to basically get their house in order, which also desperately needs to happen. So those are all good things and would be positive developments for the United States. This is all in large part of the America First vision, putting us first when it comes to what's going on globally and making sure the rest of the world, and most importantly, the worst actors on the planet, realize that their days of pushing us around are done. Because that's what you saw the last 4 years. You saw the worst actors on the planet smell weakness from America. And it started in the summer of 21 with that botched, disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, where we left Americans, allies, billions of dollars in equipment. All of that happened. And right away, what followed? Putin, he starts smelling the weakness from halfway around the world and says, you know what? Time to hit Ukraine up. Time to go in there. That happened 6 months after the fact. You see the Middle East and the worst actors there get emboldened. Iran, Hamas. All this happens because nobody respected leadership in this country for the last 4 years. You saw, of course, China flood our southern border. Mexico did nothing about the illegals coming across the border because they didn't respect us to do anything about it. Trump's not even there. And you've seen Mexico start to wake up. You've seen some negotiating happen when it comes to Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Hamas. Things are starting to get back in order. And that's just because America needs to get back to being the leader of not just the free world, but the entire world. And that doesn't mean invading countries. That doesn't mean going to war. It's peace through strength. That's what this is about. Right? Steven's in Kansas City on KCMO. Go ahead. You're on 95.7 FM, my friend.
Yeah, Pete. So you're telling me there's a chance we could buy Greenland?
Well, how much you got? What kind of change you got jangling out of that pocket there, big boy?
I tell you what. I mean, this is just kind of signaling that we're back. You know, that when I saw Charlie Kirk step off that plane in Greenland, I mean, this is a signal not only to the rest of the world. It's a signal to the Republican Party and the American people that we're on the front foot. That's the best part about all this. I mean, I can't remember anything in my life anyone ever coming out as aggressively, even before inauguration, to make sure that we're starting off on the front foot. I couldn't be happier with what's happening so far. I mean, like you said, it's the security of it. It's about national security. Putting that out there, saying if it's going to be, we're going to have to protect the Gulf of America. We're going to
the Gulf of America. Oh, it's so good. So I got so excited I started knocking over my coffee cup in here. You're right. That's right.
Well, and our interest in Canada, our interest in Greenland. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that American presidents should have been doing the last 30 or 40 years. So let's keep pressing. Let's keep on pressing.
Let's thank you, Stephen. I appreciate that. Hey, Mark, I'll put that clip in there for you at 8:05. I want to play that Gulf of America clip that Trump talked about yesterday. You let me know when you got it there.
I thought that was great. Talk about winding people up.
Funny. It's so good. It's so good. But you know what? This is what makes us Americans. Okay? We know we're the best. We know we're the greatest. We don't shy away from it. We don't back down from it. We're proud of it. And stuff like this, it's funny. It's goofy. And I love every second of it.
We're going to be changing the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, which has a beautiful ring that covers a lot of territory. The Gulf of America, what a beautiful name. And it's
so beautiful. Such a beautiful name. I love it. You know what? That's just us saying, hey, we're back, baby. We're back.
He can't do that. Can he do that? He can't do that.
Yeah, I know.
It was so funny.
Imagine having to defend because you just have such TDS. I love the name the Gulf of Mexico. Oh, you hate it. We can't do that.
Cultural appropriation.
Yeah, who cares? My gosh.
Big map is in his pocket because they're going to change every map in every school around here to the Gulf of America.
That's right. Those big map lobbyists, they're invading the halls of Congress as we speak. I wanted to actually get Claire. She's been asking about, like, the states. You know, she's got grandparents in New York and Virginia. And we were talking about Colorado the other day and Texas, and she's trying to piece it all together at 6 years old. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get her a map, one of those placemat maps that has all the states on it that I had as a kid. I'm going to get her one, but I might have to wait because they might be renaming the Gulf of Mexico pretty soon. So I don't have to buy two of them. So I might wait to see what happens with that.
Use a Sharpie and just cross out
I could
Mexico
just do that.
Right
Yeah.
America.
That's right. Maybe I'll just do that for now. Just use the old Sharpie trick. 913-408-7957. Bill O'Reilly is joining us at 8:30. I will ask him about this and much more on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. And something that really needs to happen this week, it's a no-brainer. I can't imagine anybody saying no to it, but there's some that will. We'll explain next. Did you see the cover today of the New York Post? It has a picture of Trump. It says the Don Rowe Doctrine. It says Trump's vision for the hemisphere. It has Greenland crossed out, and it says Arland, instead of Greenland. Panama Canal is crossed out. It says here, Panamaga Canal. Gulf of Mexico is now Gulf of America. And then Canada is crossed out, and it says 51st state. I will put this up on the KCMO Talk Radio Facebook page so you can see it there and share it there. It is absolutely hysterical. On the text line at 913-408-7957. Pete, we also have to change New Mexico to New America. Okay, I'm down with that. We've got to change the oceans. How about the American Ocean and the other American Ocean? That's well done. Pete, can we trade Portland for Greenland? And we can even throw Frank White into the deal. Now we're talking. Let's go. Oh, man, these ideas are rocking and rolling on the text line there. That's fantastic work. I love that. That's outstanding. Nice job, everybody. That's great. I know we're all snowed in still, or many of you are snowed in, but keeping that humor there during these cold polar vortexes that we're dealing with. Pete, how else can we get Cabo in the mix? It would be nice to go back there without getting robbed or killed. Yeah, that's a great question as well. I have not been to Cabo for that very reason. but that would be a nice benefit. I'd be open to it. In the meantime, something that is going to be very interesting to watch this week is whether or not the U.S. Senate passes the Laken Riley Act. It passed the House of Representatives yesterday afternoon, the first piece of federal legislation approved by the 119th Congress. All Republicans supported the bill. 48 Democrats supported the bill. Amazingly, there were well over 150 Democrats who did not support the bill. The bill is named after Laken Riley, the nursing student who was killed by an illegal immigrant while jogging on the University of Georgia's campus. And the bill would require federal immigration authorities to detain illegal immigrants found guilty of theft-related crimes. It would also allow states to sue the Department of Homeland Security for harm caused to their citizens because of illegal immigration. Jose Ibarra, who was sentenced to life in prison for Riley's murder, had previously been arrested but was never detained by ICE agents. The guy had multiple arrests in this country, and he was just floating around America. So that's what this bill does. The question now becomes, can they get this thing to 60 votes in the Senate? With the new makeup of the Senate, there's 53 Republicans, and there are 47 Democrats. That means 7 Democrats have to vote for this thing. Now, 47 should. It's a no-brainer. There's no way, and frankly, it would be smart for Democrats to vote for it because then they could act, even though it's not true, but they could act like they're, wanting to stem the tide of illegal immigration, which is one of the top issues that won Donald Trump this election. They could at least appear like they're tough on the border, even though this is just common sense. Hey, if you're here illegally and you commit crimes, guess what? ICE is going to take care of that, and you're going back. And if you don't do what you need to be doing as ICE, as the federal government, the states can sue you. So this would give Democrats a win to look like they have somehow learned from their mistakes. But amazingly, the majority of Democrats in the House didn't vote for it. We'll see what happens in the Senate. But even John Fetterman, a Democrat from Pennsylvania, he was on Fox News last night. And let's play that clip of John Fetterman talking about how his party should be voting for this Laken Riley Act coming up here.
Like it's really common sense. And I'd like to remind everybody that we have hundreds and hundreds of thousands of migrants here illegally that have convicted of crimes. And why? I don't know why. Who wants to defend to allow them to remain in our nation? That. And now, if you're here illegally and you're committing crimes and those things, I don't know why anybody thinks that it's controversial that they all need to go.
Do you think that this was one of, if not the biggest issue for this election?
Well, I think if we can't, there's 47 of us in the Senate, and if we can't pull up with 7 votes, if we can't get at least 7 out of 47, and if we can't, then that's the reason why we lost. That's one of them. That's one of why we lost, in part.
This guy, John Fetterman, had a massive stroke, near fatal stroke, in May of 22. Yet he's smarter than most of the people in his own party. It's pretty amazing. He's right. If they can't find people, 7 Democrats, to vote in favor of this thing, then they will show that they have not learned a lesson of what happened back on November 5th. It's crazy. It's just absolutely crazy. Coming up on KCMO, and just so you know, Sharice Davids did vote for it in Kansas. Emanuel Cleaver voted against the Laken Riley Act. So the 2 Democrats in our region, Sharice Davids voting for the Laken Riley Act wisely. Emanuel Cleaver voted against the Laken Riley Act.